All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. It is Wednesday. Wednesdays are usually big slates. We only have 9 today, though. Not outrageous, not totally outsized. Still a big injury report to deal with as flu season continues to work its way through the NBA. And now COVID concerns are also starting to work their way back into the NBA stratosphere. So, Mike Gallagher, how are you on this Wednesday? Matchups is in. Focus your attention on the injury report now.
Yeah, got the black lung pop. No, everybody's sick. A lot of big players. Anthony Edwards, and yeah, it sucks. We can't really read these things. That's I hate that about the illnesses. We can't really pick apart stuff, and we just gotta lean in and then go from there and figure it out as we go.
Yeah, so let's start there. You mentioned Anthony Edwards. He is one of the biggest names on the injury report today, questionable with the illness, along with Jared Vanderbilt. What do we think here? How would Minnesota even try to replace Anthony Edwards if they were forced to?
Well, they wouldn't. But yeah. Well, the headlines would be, Cat could just totally feast here. They're playing the Wizards, pretty good perimeter defense, going up against Daniel Gafford, who is hurt himself. He has a thumb injury, not an injury report, but something to keep an eye on to worry about his downside. He would be really, really big focal point. Obviously, D'Lo is not just a 3-point shooter anymore. He's actually taking a lot of twos now, getting the line a little bit. He's driving and kicking more. That was really a big foundation of their offense late. Is this box score you see against the Pacers. Minutes-wise, they'd have to pretty much bring Jalen Noel in the mix. He's also questionable with an illness. And, based on the timeline, if they all have this – it's been the whole chain of events, if we're going to go, outbreak and track this thing, it all started with Jared Vanderbilt. He was ill on Saturday, wasn't on the injury report, but you could see him kind of getting through everything. And then next game, Jaden McDaniels pops up, doesn't play, gets ruled out early. So you would think, Vanderbilt comes back and is okay. And then Anthony Edwards might sit out. So Okogie would have to play more. Okogie played really well in this last game. So he would take a lot of minutes to go for more of a defensive focal point. And just so much offense would go through the big guys. Other minutes guys would be, maybe McLaughlin cracks the rotation. They've been playing Leo Balmaro a little bit more too. So he'd be kind of keeping an eye on that too.
Yeah, I think we always talk about this from a minutes perspective, the guys that are most likely to kind of soak, and look, it's 40 minutes for, 35 minutes from Anthony Edwards that you're projecting. So it's a lot of guys that are going to have to replace that. It's not just one, but you would certainly see probably McLaughlin, Noel pick up some of those minutes. I think you'd see a lot of Okogie, and you'd probably see a lot of Okogie on Bradley Beal in this matchup, would be my guess. And then I think you'd see a lot of Malik Beasley. I think they would absolutely have to, I think Malik Beasley is the guy who would most likely fill Anthony Edwards' role from an offensive perspective, and have him kind of have 2 of the 3 of Beasley, Towns, and Dar on the floor at all times, essentially. Because I just don't know that they can create enough offense if they don't do something like that. If they had a lineup where they could do it with just one of Cat or Dar, but if they had a lineup with just Beasley out there, it's going to struggle offensively quite a bit. Yeah. So I think you could see Malik Beasley become a really, really strong value tonight. There's a couple different ways that could happen too, because McDaniels has already been ruled out, which we saw them play last game without McDaniels and Vanderbilt. So that's where you get Taurean Prince into the mid-20s. Okogie filled a big part of that role last time, but McDaniels has already been ruled out. Vanderbilt's still questionable on the injury report. So you could get the same scenario again without Anthony Edwards, which you just look down the line of options and it gets really, really thin. So you could end up seeing really condensed rotations from Minnesota tonight.
Yeah, it's worth adding. Finch said he does like Beasley off the bench, but not exactly apples to apples from when that quote came about with losing Anthony Edwards. So yeah, you're right. I think he would start.
Yeah, I think he'd slide. I think he'd probably slide into the starting rotation if Edwards was out, and I think Okogie. I could see Okogie starting regardless, honestly.
Yeah,
I think he might have earned enough with how he played last time. Vanderbilt, they might want to kind of keep some sort of cap for conditioning purposes as he returns from an illness. If he's not, I think Okogie's definitely starting. I think Prince has the vulnerability to come out of the starting lineup here simply because I think Okogie, the defense against Bradley Beal is a little bit more important for them in this game than any of the other attributes that those guys bring. All right. Bam and Jimmy, questionable. Hero is back. Dwayne Dedmon is questionable as well for the Heat. But I mean, it feels like every time we talk, every time the Heat are on the slate, we're talking about multiple of their top players on the injury report. So here we go again. We know Tyler Hero will play, but we don't know about Jimmy and we don't know about Bam. Matchup against Cleveland's not particularly super compelling. Cleveland doesn't play super fast. They've been pretty decent defensively this year. And obviously all these guys' price tags are a little bit inflated from playing without each other of late. But what do you think on Jimmy and Bam and their likely availability tonight?
Yeah, tailbone injury for Jimmy. Didn't play in the last game. Gonna probably be game time.
Yeah,
New injury for Bam.
DNP tailbone, DNP tuck your tailbone between your legs because Jokic and his brothers are in town.
That's right. Yeah, we got Bam's got a new injury now. He's got a thumb injury. This is the same knee thing that was bothering him for most of last month. It's a new month, man. This is crazy. It's December already. But yeah, so again, I don't have a feel on this. We know that Spoelstra has said multiple times they're going to be careful. So, I mean, if Jimmy's not healthy, they're going to probably sit him. But pretty good matchup against the Cavs. The Cavs are going to play. They've been playing really, really good defense. So obviously, we saw the last game that they pretty much put. And it's not exactly the same situation. I still think they're not going to want to start Max Strus either way because they have Max Strus and Duncan never playing together at all. So it would, if Jimmy doesn't play again, I think they would probably go. I don't know if they would start Hero in that spot. I think they'd probably start Caleb again. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they would keep Hero off the bench. I think Hero would close for sure, but I think they split up some of the usage in that spot. The bigger one to me, Jimmy is obviously a big deal. If he doesn't play, it opens up rates for a lot of different guys. And Kyle Lowry and if Bam was playing, they both get spikes in value as well. But with Hero back, it's not quite as strong as it was last time in the Denver game. But the big thing to me is if Bam isn't able to go, and let's Dedmon's Q2 against Jared Allen, who's just been killing everybody on the boards of late. You need size. And so I think you would have a pretty desperate situation for Miami if they were unable to have Bam tonight. Desperate enough that I think Dedmon would play as much as he could handle, both physically and with fouls, because I don't know that they'd be ready to play Yurt-Seven really meaningful minutes. I think Yurt-Seven, in those scenarios might get into the teens, the 13, 14, 15 area. Maybe 16, 17, 18.
The Yurt-17 range?
Yeah, but I really think Dedmon would have to play a lot, assuming he didn't foul himself out of playing a lot. Because I just don't
they'd have to start him.
I don't think they could do the PJ Tucker at center lineups. They can do that, against Mobley or against Kevin Love. You can't do it against Jared Allen. He's just he's too big. And it's not that he's going to hurt you with post-ups or anything like that. But the pick and roll game, the verticality, there would be nothing to contest it. And then on the offensive boards, I mean, he'd just be playing a tap out every missed shot. So I think that's one. I think Jimmy is obviously a big deal, but I think Bam is a bigger deal for this matchup from a opening up fantasy value as well.
Yep, I agree. And we're going to have to just find out. Spoelstra didn't talk about really anything with Bam after the game, so it sounds minor, but Jared Allen just destroyed Moses Brown in the last game. He's freaking rolling right now.
All right, so those are the big question marks on the slate. There's plenty of other secondary ones. The first one that I want to start with is in Indiana, where Miles Turner is questionable once again, and we saw last game without Miles Turner. My God, Domantas Sabonis. I mean, he grabbed almost every rebound that was available. The team had 47. He had more than half of them. He played 36 minutes, which is kind of normal, but the rebounding rate just skyrocketed. And you look at kind of the way the roster is set up, and you look at how they approach the game against Minnesota, a team that generally plays a true center at all times, right? We had Karl-Anthony Towns play 32, Naz Reid play 23. So there was 7 minutes of overlap between the two there and 48 true center minutes. And what did we get? We got 36 minutes from Sabonis. We got 6 minutes from Goga, and we got 6 minutes from Isaiah Jackson. They did not play. They played Sabonis as a true center and really their only center. They just tried to piecemeal the other spots together. So in those scenarios, the minute ceiling for Sabonis gets really, really high. And then obviously, like going up against Atlanta, who generally plays a true-ish center. I mean, Capella for most of the minutes, and then sometimes it's Gorgie Jang, sometimes it's Danilo Gallinari or John Collins. Sabonis, the minute ceiling would be really, really high. Not as favorable of a matchup as Minnesota. I think, Cat is not the defender that Capella is by any means. And certainly I would not expect a 25 rebound game from Sabonis once again, but I imagine if Miles Turner
you
was
wouldn't
out,
you want to take the 24.5 over?
I would take under 24.5. Yeah, I would take under 24.5. I'd feel pretty good
20
about it.
And plus, what's crazy, 21 defensive rebounds is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like whenever you see those big rebound spike games, it's because there's always like that little volleyball tip, and they get like one spot where they get like 5 or 6 of them in like 2 possessions or something.
This is just everybody clearing out, so Sabonis can take every rebound that's available, essentially. We should also note that for Indiana, Justin Holiday has already been ruled out. So they're in a spot where, like, if they don't have Holiday or Turner, things do start to get a little bit thinner for them. And they have been there. I guess their rotation's been a little bit weird since the start of the season. Like, once they got LeVert back, Duarte's minutes started to be more volatile. They removed Jeremy Lamb from the rotation entirely. I think with Holiday out, you have to expect that Lamb probably gets back into the rotation, but doesn't play heavy minutes. But Duarte now has the minute ceiling to get there. And if Turner was out too, I think there's chances that you could see like minutes really condense on a guy or two. We've seen it be a little hot handy with Torrey Craig, with Duarte, and Holiday kind of seized that role. But I think you could see the minutes condense on one guy just because they've been willing to be hot handy. And that opens up upside on people that like nobody's going to play in DFS.
Yeah, the matchup here is very different if they don't have Turner. I do not think they would start TJ McConnell again in that small ball stuff. I wrote in matchup, I think, they might start Torrey Craig, and give him size against John Collins that way. Yeah. Or, dust off O'Shea Brissett. He's really their only other true-ish 4 that they put out there. So I think those guys would be more inclined for minutes if no Turner. I think the Holiday stuff's pretty straightforward. Definitely Chris Duarte to get his job back, fill minutes in. But like you mentioned, Jeremy Lamb should get some playing time. I don't think they would bring Wanamaker. Maybe Kellen Martin picks up some minutes, but pretty straightforward with that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. On the other side of that game, Cam Reddish is questionable. We've talked at length about how Atlanta's really lost a lot of their depth, especially on the wings of late, with no Bogdanovic, with no DeAndre Hunter. Now you've got Reddish questionable as well. What are your thoughts on his likelihood of availability tonight? We did see them play basically without Reddish. He played 7 minutes when he got hurt last time out. So what do you think about his availability tonight?
Yeah, not great. Limited in shooting drills, which is not great. Obviously, it's a wrist issue, so that's going to be what's affected more than anything else. So, I kind of think he sits. We already got Bogdan out. We saw Solomon Hill start the second half of the last game. They've been off for a little bit here. They've been off since Saturday, since the weekend. Yeah. But he would definitely be a guy that picks up minutes. Obviously, you're not going to want to play Solomon Hill. I think they would maybe try to up Gallo a little bit more. I don't think they really run him at the 3 much at all, but like you're kind of at a desperation point here. We saw Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot pick up some minutes. Maybe they bring in DeLon Wright. Again, kind of against Indiana, I think they could afford to go smaller in the backcourt. So maybe he picks up some run. Lou Williams is probably in the rotation for a pretty good bit.
Yeah.
But
look at the starters' minutes there.
That's what I was going to say.
That's the thing you got to look towards in terms of the upside. Herter 38, John Collins 40, Capella 35, Trae Young 39. And this is a game that Bogdanovic started, only played 10 minutes, and Reddish came off the bench for 7 minutes. So they had 17 minutes of those guys, and they still had to fill a bunch of other holes. And they basically chose to fill it by giving more to the starters. That's not a super long-term sustainable approach and strategy, but it's something that I think you're going to see on specific nights when the games are close and whatnot. I imagine, as you alluded to, Solomon Hill would draw the start in these instances, and that's another good thing for the starters as well, because that's a really low usage player that's out there. Basically just a spot-up shooter, in the old Tony Snell role. Low usage, occasionally collects a rebound, but just out there to kind of defend. And so that concentrates the offensive possessions within 4 guys as well. So I think a lot of reasons to be optimistic on the Hawks starters tonight. not only because of some of the limitations in terms of the injury report and who might be out, but also the rest. You mentioned it. They haven't played in a few days as well. And this time of the year, when you get a few days off, like I'm sure these guys feel super rejuvenated because they've been playing so much basketball to start the year. So I think the Hawks are in a pretty interesting spot tonight against Indiana.
Yep, I think you said it. And if they do put a small ball 4 on Collins, there's been spots when they really go out use Collins not only as a passer in the pocket and facilitate offense too. So it'll become a pretty good John Collins spot if Turner's out.
Yeah. All right. More as we work through these questionables. Josh Hart is questionable for New Orleans, and I think this is actually kind of a big deal because they really don't trust many guys. Willie Green basically trusts Joe Val, Josh Hart, Ingram, and Devontae Graham, and Herb Jones, and he trusts Herb Jones. Those are the guys. He's been inconsistent in his praise of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then everybody else, the minutes have been really, really volatile. So if you remove Josh Hart from the rotation, you're talking about 30 minutes that need to get filled. And like, how do they get filled? And I think we saw earlier in the season when Josh Hart was out to start the year, we saw Nickeil Alexander-Walker in that starting lineup. We saw him get more opportunities. I think that's the route they'd go with this, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on how they'd fill Josh Hart's absence if he was unable to go tonight?
I was actually thinking Temple to give them kind of another wing defender, pretty much throw him on Hardaway Jr. I don't think they really need to worry about they don't really have anybody big enough to play KP anyway. So, I think they would probably put. Sorry, I'm kind of sorry to think this on the fly here. Yeah, I said something about. I think they just throw Ingram on KP, or actually they may put JV on him, and then kind of build through that way and put Ingram on whoever the 5 is, like if it's Moses Brown or whatever. They've got options. They put it straight anyways. But I think Temple, which wouldn't be in play, but Herb would play a ton. Herb would get the Luka assignment, which is pretty tough. Herb's been pretty good.
Yeah. No, Herb's played very good defense. The offensive game has kind of come around a little bit as the season has worn on as well. So he's been a really nice draft pick, which I think was a really good draft class for New Orleans in general. Surprised that he's the guy we're seeing so much of and not Trey Murphy this year, but that's just been the way it works out when you've got a defensive stopper kind of role on the team. In terms of if you remove Hart from the rotation, the biggest thing that I'd say from a DFS perspective is whether he gets replaced by Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Garrett Temple, whoever it is not going to have the same type of rebounding potential that Josh Hart has. So you could see substantial increases in rebound rate for both Joe Val and Brandon Ingram.
And assist rate. I mean, his assists have been up quite a bit through the course of this year as well. So that's more ball handling for Graham, more ball handling for Ingram. It'll be a really Brandon Ingram-centric offense. And they are going to dump the hell out of the ball to JV. So I think JV, kind of regardless, would be playing significant minutes. What he did against the Clippers was hilarious.
Yeah, 7 for 8 from 3, 24 shots. I imagine JV will get a ton of shots again tonight going up against a smaller Dallas front court. Jaylen Brown, is there going to be a minutes cap? If so, should we pay attention to it? Is he going to play tonight? What's the conditioning situation? What's the deal with Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, so he's going to have this little minutes cap, man. The sirens are by you today. So he still has the cap on him, right? We've got 27 minutes in the Raptors game. As Ime Udoka said last week, it'll kind of be a week thing with them putting a cap on him. So probably be a little bit more. Really nothing to think that he's been, fully unleashed. So, big game, but I think he'd probably be like low 30s. But it's a hamstring. So this isn't the old Jaylen Brown thing we talked about before.
Yeah, and why don't you keep it going talking about Cody Martin while I wait for these sirens to finally leave?
Okay, yeah. So Cody Martin, it's kind of a sneaky important thing because that second unit defense when they run him, Jalen McDaniels, Bridges at the 5, that's kind of off the table against the Bucks, who are scoring. They're going to score a ton. The Hornets defense, you just look at the numbers they've been giving up, man. I mean, they are getting wrecked these last couple games since they've lost Mason Plumlee. So losing another defensive player would be huge for the Bucks. The Bucks are going to score a lot tonight. So replacing him, it's not that much that the minutes matter. It like sneakily helps PJ Washington a little bit, even though he came off the bench in the last game. He'd be the guy to be really secure because I don't think Brett trusts that like core Cody Martin lineup without Cody Martin. So I think his minutes would be really secure. Kelly Oubre has also been really, really good with that. Mason Plumlee, he'll be looking at a pretty good role regardless. Terry Rozier is going to be bombing threes today. I don't. They may bring in somebody else instead of going with basically this ridiculous 7-man rotation besides Nick Richards. But Borrego's played it pretty tight. So, you're back.
Yeah, I mean that's an absurdly tight rotation. That is basically 7.5 guys, and that's pretty unheard of for regular season NBA. I mean that's even tight for a playoff rotation, honestly. So I think Cody Martin's absence, what it signals is from seeing this this last game against the Bulls, which look, they were down almost 20 points entering the fourth quarter, and we still got this tight of rotations. So I think it has to make you feel really, really confident if Martin is unable to go, that the main Charlotte guys have immense ceiling to them from a minutes projection standpoint. It's very hard to make your median projections or your mean projections play this tight, but this is what we saw last time out. So there's certainly the opportunity to do so tonight. And the other thing I note is last game was a better game matchup wise for Nick Richards than this game is.
Mm-hmm.
So if he can only play 7 in the good matchup, this could be essentially like a 7-man rotation tonight. And given how quick Milwaukee plays, given that we saw Charlotte go into the fourth quarter down almost 20 points and still not pull the plug, I think you'd have to feel pretty confident that, look, investing in Charlotte, you're going to catch some ceiling games given the pace of play, and that it would have to be such a big blowout to really take the foot off the pedal for Borrego and the Hornets, because they didn't do it against Chicago.
And it's worth mentioning that Borrego said in the last game that he was considering playing James Bouknight. Although he may be in the G League.
I think they sent both Bouknight and
you're right.
And someone else down to the G League.
Yep, he's out. My bad. I think they're back. All the guys got sent down. So.
Kai Jones, that's who it was. Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah. So I mean, if Martin cannot play, they are very, very, very thin. Something to file away, because that game does have the highest total on the slate. Going to have the best pace. Very, very game stackable, that game.
Yeah, first and offensive pace of the Hornets, and Bucks are 6th. It's definitely the highest pace game of the slate.
Yeah. Okay. You have Mike Muscala on the injury report. Is this a joke that you just want to talk about the Thunder? Why is
come on, man. Well, it's relevant though, because I mean, these teams just played, and Isaiah Roby, he kind of smashed. So I think it's just worth talking about. Muscala hurt his ankle in pregame. Derek Favors isn't out, so now you're talking about this 4-center rotation possibly being condensed to 2. And I mean, Roby put up 17 against that, against Şengün. He kind of took care of business there. Roby missed all of his shots. It was a really good matchup. Couldn't convert while Roby was kind of cooking. So I'm assuming Roby's really cheap, but he would be in play.
These Thunder game logs, man, seeing the 30 next to Trey Mann, seeing the 27 next to Roby, and then 2 games later you'll see 4s next to them. It's just maddening. It's God. I just wish have Ted Lasso coach them. Turn this into some sort of film. It's just ridiculous.
So good. I love Thunder,
man. If Muscala and Favors are both unable to go, it certainly opens the door. Can you count on anything from Oklahoma City? I don't know. I mean, Baisley goes from playing 34 to 20. Mann goes from playing 8 to 30. So who knows each and every night. For large field MME stuff, you can always take some shots in those spots. The other
Dagnall did. I was just going to add. Dagnall said they want a quote sustained look at Trey Mann, so that's kind of why you got squeezed a little bit. They went a little bit base of this. They kind of went a little bit smaller. They played a decent amount of Paul Watson, who actually played good defense overall. He's a really good defender. So I think Baisley. There's been talk of pulling him. We're trying to take some of his unders. We want to figure out where, because the Thunder or the Rockets, they're such a good spot right now for fantasy goodness.
Yeah, don't give away too much on the free YouTube channel.
Yeah,
we still got to work through some options. All right, Kristaps Porzingis listed as probable. I knew that was one that when the injury happened last game, you were concerned that we might be absent Porzingis for a decent amount of time, and then Jason Kidd has just not been forthright in talking about injuries whenever they've happened this year in terms of after practice interviews and whatnot. So getting the available to play or the probable tag early in the day is certainly a good sign for Porzingis, but you always have to have question marks with Porzingis' health.
Yeah, exactly. He got the Q tag early in the game against the Cavs, but they got blown out, just got ruled out. So doesn't sound serious. If I know when if I think I know when it happened, it didn't look serious. So definitely being cautious. It's Porzingis, so you don't want to treat this like the normal probable tag, like they're for sure playing kind of tag. So we'll have to see. Obviously, we'll expect him in there. I don't expect him to be limited with a pretty mild ankle tweak.
Yesterday in this spot, we had a team that had not filed their injury report yet, the Portland Trailblazers. And Mike, you, ahead of the injury report, said that you had concerns that Damian Lillard was going to rest last night. That did come to fruition, unfortunately, well in advance of lock, so there wasn't a lot to be gained from the information. Do you have any leans or gut instincts on the Kings tonight? To their credit, the Kings have been resting all their players for the last few weeks. Nobody plays hard. Everybody just jogs up and down the floor and lets everybody score on them. So the Kings, will they be officially resting anyone tonight, do you think?
I don't think so. De'Aaron Fox is terrible, man. It was one of his worst games. They're going against Paul George, so I think they would start Terrence Davis on him and play that way. We don't know if Harkless is going to be out. I assume he's going to be out again, given that he's been kind of ruled out early. And then, you don't need that size with Metu in there. So, I mean, things are real funky with this rotation. So, it's kind of a, I don't know situation, which I don't say very often, but it's pretty ugly.
I think you and most of the Kings fans and most of the people in the Kings organization are all along the I don't know train. Okay, returning to action tonight, we've got Cole Anthony back for the Magic. We've talked about how the Magic are a very vulnerable team without Cole Anthony out because he runs so much of their offense. And we said specifically the guys that could take a hit in value or at least be far more inconsistent were the bigs, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr. We've kind of seen that play out of late. They did play better against Philadelphia, but we've seen really, really kind of inconsistent performances from Wendell Carter Jr. has been super consistent all year long. I think the return of Cole Anthony helps that quite a bit. Jalen Suggs is out tonight, so the guards from a minutes perspective, it's not a huge swing from what we've seen of late. I think there's still going to be opportunity for RJ Hampton, for Gary Harris. Cole Anthony definitely has a higher minute ceiling and floor than Jalen Suggs, so they lose some of that ceiling to them. But
I think he may have a little cap on him.
You think so?
That the ankle sprain cost him some time. Yeah. Not a hard cap, but I don't think he's going to be playing full minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so that's important. We've seen Franz Wagner really benefit in this spot. When Anthony went down, they seem to really trust him. He's been playing really well. Again, with all these rookies and on bad teams, the performances are going to be pretty inconsistent. Home game against Denver. Denver's defense has been wildly different when Jokic is in versus when Jokic is out. Jokic is in. He's the only one that's in. Everybody else is out because Denver's lost Austin Rivers, lost PJ Dozier, lost Bones Highland, obviously lost Michael Porter Jr. for the season, Jamal Murray. So Denver is bleeding bodies left and right. Cole Anthony's return, though, do you think this makes the Orlando situation as a whole a little bit more stable and viable to invest in, or do you think Anthony's big rates returning to the lineup take away all the value that you'd look at for Orlando?
I think it still makes guys somewhat viable. Certainly, it was grand opening and grand closing for RJ, which sucks because I really like RJ. I'm sorry, not RJ Hampton in a revenge game. How dare you? But yeah. So for the Franz Wagner stuff, he was basically playing point guard in the second unit with Hampton and with Wendell Carter Jr. as the 5 spot, and when Bamba was sitting, which is why you see kind of the new second big man with Mo Wagner and Robin Lopez. So I still think he can kind of cook, if he's going to get 18 minutes away from Cole. So I think he's an option. Gary Harris is still going to shoot pretty good. Revenge game as well for him too, to consider. His minutes should be pretty stable. And the bigs have been, getting pretty good amount of usage. Their minutes should be pretty stable as well.
Yeah. And talking about Denver, we just mentioned Bones Highland, Austin Rivers, both out. We're walking through kind of what the rotation could look like tonight. We think this certainly means we see Marcus Howard, who has been willing to fire away in his short opportunities in the NBA. The one thing that I'd say about Marcus Howard, who's not going to be a play in DFS at all tonight, I don't think, is that he's mostly played in garbage time in his career. And there was a stint last year. I remember this vividly because there was a stint last year for a 4 or 5 game stretch where he was they were so thin at the end of the year with the guard situations that he kind of moved into a more prominent role, and his rates just totally cratered, when he was playing with the big boys. It's like, no. You're not going to soak up possessions out here. Those are going to go through Barton and Jokic and whatnot. So he is a guy that if he got moved into the starting lineup, I think he would project really well. But I would be hesitant to get excited about that situation. Now, what do I think is going to happen from a starting perspective? We think it's going to be the same 5 that they started against Miami: Monty Morris, Barton at the 2, Jeff Green at the 3, or Aaron Gordon at the 3, depending on how you classify them. The other at the 4, and then Jokic at the 5. And now the primary bench guy, right, is Campazzo. Like, he's now the primary bench guy. We'll see if JaMychal Green's available tonight. He's listed as questionable on the injury report. I don't think his presence makes a huge difference. I think it's basically him or Zeke Naji as the backup 5, and then the other guy doesn't play, I don't think, or plays very sparingly. In the case of Green, it would be he would have been ruled out and he would not play at all. And then, how they fill the backup 3 minutes, I think is challenging. So I think you see Concard probably have to play like 15 to 20 minutes. I think you see Marcus Howard have to play like 15 to 20 minutes. And when teams get this thin, the starters' minutes can get really high. We saw Aaron Gordon play 38 last game. That was kind of in a game that, Denver was in control of, like similar to the Charlotte-Chicago game, up 20 going into the 4th. He still got up to 38. Barton got to 33. Like, if these guys end up coming in at 36, 37, 38 tonight, they're going to beat their projection most likely, especially against a team like Orlando who can cede a lot of fantasy points. So I think this is an interesting spot. Jokic is going to draw all the attention, obviously, and deservedly so. The reigning MVP has been a fantasy monster whenever he's been healthy this year, and he should cook again tonight. But I think some of these secondary options, even with elevated price tags of late from playing without Jokic, they have passed to really extreme playing time that could still make an impact on a fantasy perspective if Denver goes really tight.
Yeah, I think the headline, like you said, is that this could be tight. Like, we've seen spots from Malone really, really tightens it up.
Yeah.
So, these fringy guys, like we saw a little bit of overlap with Campazzo and Monte. We're seeing a little bit more of that now. That obviously happened because there was no Bones, and now they don't have Bones again. So I think Facu could really get a good amount of playing time as really an anchor 6-man to carry the bench unit there. While like the next guy up will be Najee's definitely in the rotation, and then you're talking pretty fringy with the Marcus Howard types and the Concard stuff. So
you think Najee is definitely in the rotation even if JaMychal Green plays?
Okay. Yeah, I think he's still in there. I think they would run him.
So then Jeff Green's minutes would all be at the 3, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So he would they wouldn't bring him. They'd run JaMychal for the all non-Jokic, and then.
Okay, I might need to make some adjustments there on the minutes there because I don't have Zeke in with JaMychal Green.
Yeah, he seems to be pretty far ahead.
I think so.
Even though they're missing a lot of guards.
Him as a true center. Like, if they treat him as only a center and they treat JaMychal as only a center, then the guys just don't play because Jokic is going to play so much, So if they're willing to play those guys at the 4, that does loosen things up a little bit.
He's played some 3 and 4, mostly 4, but they've been playing with the 5 just because of necessity without JaMychal. So I think he would still get some forward minutes.
The other thing that I note is the ceiling on Jokic is immense here too, because they could choose to try to handle all of this by basically saying like, all right, the other way to try to replace all these issues we have is just have Jokic play 37, 38 and soak up everything. I think that's in the realm of possibility, which is why. He and Giannis are going to be the top overall spends on the slate where people are going to be looking towards. And I don't think you can really go wrong with either one in these specific situations that they're in. But, man, I would be trying to jam both tonight if I could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Aaron Holiday also ruled out this afternoon. I don't think this is a big one. With Spencer Dinwiddie and Beal there, basically he's just a backup piece. I think it helps Corey Kispert and Raul Neto minutes a little bit, and maybe Davis Bertans. Certainly, you could argue that it gives a little bit more upside to Dinwiddie and Beal, but they've really kept Dinwiddie around that 30 number most of the time, and they're obviously managing him on back-to-backs. You could say it helps Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's ceiling a little bit, which I agree with, but he's usually not really fantasy relevant. So I don't think Aaron Holiday's absence, we usually project him for around 12, 13 minutes, really makes much of a difference.
I think it helps the KCP a lot minutes-wise. They're going to really need his perimeter defense in this matchup. So, he could really get up there. Not that you really want to be encouraged to play him, but, yeah, I think this is one of his biggest ceiling possibility games. Without Aaron Holiday, who's more of a perimeter defender, secondary ball handler at times too. But yeah, you mentioned Howell Neto, Kispert probably being in the rotation. That was Bertans kind of cut into the center minutes. I mentioned earlier, Gafford has a thumb injury he's been playing through, which could take a little bit of upside off him too. So, not against Cat, man. They're not going to want to put Bertans out there against the Cat.
Yeah, they have not like you see in that game. Aaron Holiday played 12 and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope played 25. So like I think it helps Caldwell-Pope a little bit, but it's really hard to project him beyond like upper 20s because they haven't shown the mid 30s ceiling for him. And they obviously against the Spurs, who have plenty of perimeter oriented scoring and lead offense, they did not prioritize it enough to have 48 full minutes of their best guard defenders out there. So for whatever reason, I think the minutes from Holiday just get spread amongst, I think like the ceiling improves a little bit for KCP, for Gafford, for Harrell, for Kispert, for Bertans. I think it just gets spread among those guys. I don't think you see a new body in the rotation. I think they just kind of cut it down to, they played 11 guys in the rotation here. They'll just go down to like 10 or 9.5 type thing tonight.
Yep.
Okay. So that'll do it. Running through the injury report. No other big news broke while we were on, thankfully. So nothing that we have to try to handle on the fly here. If you are a subscriber to Established Run's NBA DFS product, we'll be back on the air at 5:00 this evening with myself and Gary Hartman breaking down the slate, answering all the DFS specific questions that we have. If you're not a subscriber to ETR, you can catch our NBA injury report analysis show each and every day here at 2:00 Eastern. We will be back again tomorrow to cover another smaller slate on Thursday. If you're enjoying all the content that we're providing here, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us with producing this free content for you each and every day, Monday through Friday. So we will see you guys all again tomorrow, same place, same time, 2:00 Eastern. Till then, good luck in all your games. And for the premium subscribers, we'll see you tonight in a few hours. Bye, everybody.